The human mind is so complex, and to assume that it's only aligned to one gender because of what's in someone's pants sounds a little far-fetched to me. Hi, I'm Cal. I am 24 years old, and I am a transgender male with a mild case of both ADHD and PTSD. I found out I was transgender in 2014, and I found that out because a friend actually asked me a question, and he looked at me and asked, "Hey, what are your pronouns?" I said, "She, her." And he told me his, and I think they were they, them at the time. And I went, "You can choose." And they said, "Yeah, of course you can choose. You have that will, you have that freedom." And I began questioning there. When I was in elementary school, I fitted in more with the boys than I did with the girls. When I would hang out with the girls, I felt not really one of them. I thought for the longest time I was just a weird girl.
How were your parents?
My dad's accepting to a degree. It's a case of him not understanding. He was sad at first that he was losing a daughter, but he got happy that he was gaining a son. And we were still family. He didn't want to lose me. And my mom at the time, I first came out to my mom as a lesbian because I thought, I liked girls. I thought girls were awesome. And she said, "I can't attend your wedding." And I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "Because you can't get married." And then I explained that you could. And for her, it was scary knowing later on that I was a boy. And she was like, "Well, what am I going to call you, my son?" Like,
How is your day-to-day life with ADHD and PTSD?
for me, I wake up and it can vary between me waking up and thinking, wow, this can be a busy day, to there's mess here, there's mess there, and I can't do anything about it, and I'm going to get yelled at about it, and I'm just going to lay back in bed. Or I have to warn my partner, which I don't frankly do enough.
What methods do you use to help your conditions?
I do a lot of communicating with people when I am triggered. And I also use notes, or I will write on a whiteboard and say what I need to get done, or I will repeat it to myself. With my PTSD, when I do get triggered, I have to either pull myself away from the situation. I don't warn my partner when I'm having a bad day enough. And that is something I would just recommend for anyone. Just, hey, if you think today is going to be a bad day with your mental health, tell your friends, your family, your partner, tell them, hey, today is a bad mental health day. I'm going to need a lot of reassurance. I'm going to have to be brought back on task, and I'm going to need help.
How often does that happen?
Bad mental health days happen. Like, I will have them about 4 times out of the week, usually. They just pop up.
You just wake up and then you start feeling it, or
Like, it will either be I'll wake up because I had a bad nightmare, or I just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, literally. Sometimes it will be I will start doing dishes and something, just how it feels to dishes, or a sound, or a texture, the slightest thing will set me off, and I will just be in a bad mood all day.
do you recognize when that happens?
I will recognize it hours later when I am crying to my partner and they're asking me, "I just asked you if you wanted cereal for lunch. Why are you crying?" And I'm just like, "Because I upset you and you're mad at me and you hate me." And they're like,
Where do you think it comes from?
It comes from watching my brother, probably. Watching my brother get yelled at by my mom. Watching my parents and also my brother argue, and being in a kind of volatile household. It's going to breed this fear, this dread, this anxiety.
Okay, so how do you calm down from, having these triggers and talking to your partner? How do you then go back to your normal self?
I use any comedian's greatest tool, comedy. Everything that had gone wrong with my life through jokes. They are peer diagnosed, peer being someone else has told me, hey, you have something wrong with you. I think this is what it is because I have a relative, I have a friend, I myself am diagnosed with this, and you behave identically. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactive disorder. There's 3 forms of it that it can appear as. It is inattentive, hyperactive, and both. Hyperactive being the, oh, I gotta tap my foot, I've gotta move my hands, I can't, focus, I can't stay, looking at something. And inattentive makes it very hard to focus in the first place. It can be seen in classrooms as a student looking dead at the wall while the teacher's going over a lesson. And how I did it was, how I treated my own inattentiveness was with sketching. I used to draw in class, and that kept me focused because my mind was busy while I was also learning. PTSD is typically associated with veterans. It is when someone goes through something severely traumatic. It can be as simple as genuinely losing a goldfish because you got attached to that animal, and then when it died, it was taken away from you, and you didn't know how to grieve with that. Or it can be also a parent hitting you. Now, whenever someone raises their hand in front of your face, like, oh, hey, how you doing, man? You might instinctively flinch. And it triggers major alarms of fight, flight, or freeze, where someone will just freeze themselves and stay stuck and can't move, to fighting and straight up attacking someone because you are back where you got hurt. That trauma is open and you are not sure how to deal with it. And then there's flight where you just run away from the situation, you isolate. Now for me, it was, I grew up in an apartment and my mom was a smoker and my dad had issues of his own. They both did. My mom most likely had undiagnosed autism. And we say this because she had a routine for things. If she had a cigarette, she would have a coffee. If she went into the car, she would have a cigarette. And also a huge thing with autism is this unbelievable encyclopedic knowledge. You could ask her, hey, who was dating Elvis Presley in like the 1950s? Oh, well, actually, this was going on in the 1950s, and you would get a whole history lecture of Hollywood. It was amazing how much her mind just retained.
How did you become aware of your ADHD and PTSD?
More so, I was very, very intelligent, but I couldn't focus, and when I could, it was very hard. And I didn't question it, because I was like, I'm just a normal kid, and then I got put in special ed. And that was because one of the symptoms of ADHD and also just neurodivergency is an emotional imbalance, because you can feel so much or you feel so little. And I was one of the people who felt so much.
And what about PTSD? Where did that come from?
I grew up in an apartment complex where there was a lot going on. I had a friend who, if I remember at the time, his mom was being abused. His mom was a smoker. He watched Family Guy and thought it was real life and would end up hurting people. At the time, I didn't have really any friends. I had an amazing friend who lived with us for a bit and a guy called Steven. He had multiple times throughout my childhood chased me with a plastic knife. I was about 7, 6 at the time. So I had to deal with the terror of someone who was 7, 8 years old taking out a knife and being like, I'm gonna stab you, and not knowing if that's a real knife or not. My mom was also partially abusive to my brother. and that went back on me, which was just a cycle of abuse. There was an instance where my mom had started yelling at my brother, and he closed the door on her, said, "I don't want to talk to you right now." I remember him pushing her away. She slammed the door open, because there was this just hallway. There was a door, her bedroom to the right, and then me and my brother's bedroom to the left, and the bathroom at the end of the hall. And she kept pushing him, shoving him, until he hit the bathroom wall, saying just not great things to him. And I watched this.
What about you? How were you with her and your dad?
She was quite nice with me, actually, and it kind of made the issues with my brother worse, because she would be nice to me but not nice to him. And I would watch that, and I have that understanding as an adult. When I was a child, I thought it was the best. I thought it was amazing. And now I live with that weight, knowing she was not kind to him for no reason at all. And my dad just wasn't around, period. So it was, when he was around, I would basically run up to him and be like, "Hey, here's what I'm interested in. I'm going to talk to you about Pokemon and my favorite Pokemons and what I think the best Pokemon is. Like, I think this dog is the best." And I swear there was a time he had snapped at me about it. Like, he just told me to stop talking. And at the time, again, I thought that was normal.
What are some of the misconceptions that people have about these mental conditions?
Transgender people are the most obnoxious people you will ever meet, like misconception-wise. They're the most obnoxious, actually, my pronouns are this, and you better get it right, or you're going to hell. PTSD only belongs to the veterans. Veterans do have PTSD. It's just veterans aren't the only people with PTSD. PTSD can come from being raised in a gang neighborhood, to being raised in an abusive household, to just being raised in a volatile household, not particularly abusive, just violent. And with ADHD, one, it's not just found in men. Two, ADHD isn't just this. It is not just this. And it can cause actual problems. You forget things. You forget to pay your water bill. You forget to, pick up your medication. The list goes on for ADHD. And it's a thing that people with ADHD, autism, they're more prone to have either BPD or PTSD from childhood. BPD is borderline personality disorder, because how their brains are. And there isn't really much you can do for that, because you either over-traumatize someone or you're too kind on them, and that results in them being arrogant, ignorant, or very shell-shocked when someone is rude to them, when someone says no after they've been hearing yes their entire life.
And how would you like to be helped by your partner, any loved one, or anyone really in general?
Patience. Patience is always appreciated, and I frankly don't appreciate patience I am given enough.
So like what? Like, how could someone be patient?
Waiting for the episode to cease, or being there even if it's just a hand on the shoulder and just saying, "I'm here. I'm here and you're okay and you're safe." And with ADHD, just, "Hey, did you remember to wash your hands?" Yeah. With that, I want to add, those things can be sometimes very irritating to hear. Sometimes being treated like a child is what has to happen, but sometimes you are unbelievably aware of that. That's what's happening, and it is incredibly annoying. I'm a grown adult. I shouldn't have to have you babysit me and make sure I eat food every day. I eat 3 meals a day. You shouldn't have to do that. I'm an adult, but also sometimes that's how simple it is. Sometimes you have to be asked, "Hey, did you take your medication today?"
Any last words?
I wish that anyone watching this video learned something new today and has a great time watching more of your content, and also has a great time learning about other people's issues, disorders. Like, I think one of your most recent videos was 80-year-olds giving advice. Like, enjoy watching that. Actually take notes and be a good person. There's not enough of those out there.